All right, welcome to another live. Yes, you see the title here. We're going to talk about, Juliet Holness criticized by the opposition leader, Mark Golding, and the government MPs walking out of parliament. We want to hear your views. As you can see, it's a live stream and you'll get the opportunity to call in and share. All right, so let us get this number going. So please hit the like button, hit the share button, and the subscription button. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, listener, subscriber, welcome back. All right. So, in the context of this conversation, I'll be joined by Rurian as well. And again, it's going to be a very interactive one. If you're new to this space, Voices in Education is a safe space where we share and learn from each other. So we do not bash anyone. We share our diverse views. We understand that we hold, different views, different perspectives, and that is totally okay. We share in a respectful way to ensure that we're maintaining our safe space where you feel, a sense of belonging, where you feel valued, where you just want to come back because you have a voice here. And this is the space that, we have created where we can utilize this space to talk about, issues in a very respectful way. So the number is going up, and while it is going up, please hit the like button. So, Rurian, I'm just coming over to you just to hear from you.
Hello, Dr. Shirley. Hello, viewers. Interesting topic here. It's really interesting that this has come out. This is the discussion now at this point in time. And for me, I'm wondering if this was the time and the place for this sort of discussion. And the next thing that I'm wondering is if this time of year or so long after the appointment, it took the opposition to have an issue with it few months. So that's kind of where I am thinking about this. It took a bit long before they recognized or acknowledged that this could be something that is, problematic. So, a lot of things to discuss here. So I'm looking forward for the discussions and what persons have to share on this issue.
Awesome. Thanks, Rurian, for sharing. And, I'm just going to bring you guys up to speed in the context of, what is happening. So I'm just waiting to watching that number and just waiting for it to increase. But so that we can have a sense of what is happening. So members of parliament, so MPs representing the governing Jamaica Labour Party or the government side, so those MPs, they, led by Prime Minister Andrew Holness, walked out of Parliament on Tuesday, March 19, 2024, while opposition leader Mark Golding was making his contribution to the budget debate. So during the opposition leader's presentation, all right, Mark Golding criticized the Prime Minister's wife's appointment as Speaker of the House. All right, so that's where, this walkout kind of, started. Not saying that's the only reason, because, there are other contexts that, we should look at in the context of this walkout. Was it a strategy in terms of, bringing the opposition leader's speech to an end? What was the opposition leader thinking at that time in the context of, the comments being leveled at the Speaker of the House, Juliet Holness? And so there are a lot of points, or aspects that we need to break down, and that is why we want to hear from you. We don't have the best answers, and so we learn from each other in this space. So what I want to do, I did a roundup earlier that I am going to try and play through the system so that, persons can, get an understanding of, what we are kind of talking about. All right, so I'm just going to get that, roundup ready for us so that we can have an understanding of what it is we're talking about specifically. All right, so let us try and get to that, recording there. So on Tuesday, all right, let us try and get this back.
Subscription button. Remember to comment to let me know your views on this update. All right, so on Tuesday, March 19, 2024, members of Parliament representing the governing Jamaica Labour Party, led by Prime Minister Andrew Holness, walked out of Parliament while opposition leader Mark Golding was making his contribution to the budget debate. During his presentation, the opposition leader criticized the Prime Minister's wife's appointment as Speaker of the House. Let's go to this update.
When the former Speaker was forced to resign as a result of an Integrity Commission investigation, the move to replace her with the wife of the Prime Minister, so that the head of Parliament is now the spouse of the head of government, really does not sit well with the tradition that the Speaker must act independently of the government of the day. The Speaker is intended to be independent and must act independently of the government today. That is the tradition. That is the tradition. The failure. Mr. Speaker. Members.
All right, so here Mark Golding was sharing that the head of Parliament, Juliet Holness, is also the spouse of the head of government. And so this arrangement does not sit well in the context of the tradition that the Speaker must act independently of the government of the day. As a result of this criticism, you could see the Prime Minister repeating words appearing to be low and desperate in response to the opposition leader's statement regarding Juliet Holness. At this point, the government MPs, led by the Prime Minister, left the Parliament. Mark Golding did not get the opportunity to finish his presentation as they lacked the quorum of 16 members to continue the sitting. What are your views so far in the context of this update? Remember to leave your comments in the chat.
Mr. Speaker, the failure to identify the so-called illicit 6 MPs
All right, in the context of this happening, what are your views on the MP's behavior in the parliament? Please leave your comments in the chat. In the context of Juliet Holness being Speaker of the House, it is important to highlight that her position was supported by the opposition.
We believe that the attack on the Speaker of the House, Mrs. Holness, was highly inappropriate. Mrs. Holness is a member of Parliament in her own right. Her nomination was seconded by the Leader of Opposition Business in the House, Philip Paulwell, and no member of the opposition voted against her nomination, which means they supported it. So for the Leader of the Opposition to now, in his budget presentation, speak so inappropriately about the Speaker of the House, raising negative specters over her reputation and her management of the House, we consider that to be very low and very desperate. And the government side has taken its stance that we will not stand for that sort of behavior, that sort of disrespect, and that sort of desperate politics.
Also, the acting House Leader and Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Olivia Grange, shared that she strongly objects to the statement made by the Leader of the Opposition in which he questions the election of Juliet Holness on the basis that she is the spouse of the Prime Minister.
Acting House Leader and the Minister responsible for gender, I strongly object to the statement in the House of Representatives today by the Leader of the Opposition in which he questions the election of the Honorable Speaker on the basis that she is a spouse of the head of government. The Leader of the Opposition has questioned a legitimate election of the Speaker that was undertaken by the entire House, not by some members of the House. By his statement, the Leader of the Opposition has brought the House into disrepute. The standing orders provide the qualification and process for a member of Parliament to be elected to the office of the Speaker. It outlines that a member has to be willing to serve in the role and must not be a minister or a parliamentary secretary. When the chair became vacant, in keeping with the standing orders, the member for St. Andrew East Rural was proposed by the member for St. Andrew Northeastern.
Madam Clerk, I beg to nominate the Member of Parliament for the great constituency of East Rural St. Andrew, Mrs. Juliet Holness, to become the Speaker of the House.
And seconded by the member for Kingston East and Port Royal.
Madam Clerk, I beg to second the motion.
There was no objection. No other person was proposed. And the member from St. Andrew East Rural, the most Honorable Juliet Holness, was duly elected Speaker. There was absolutely no objection to the Speaker's election. So it is disturbing and hypocritical that after more than 5 months after her election, that the Leader of the Opposition should so spectacularly question the election of this eminently qualified woman. Like all members of the House who are not ministers or parliamentary secretaries, she has the right to be considered for the post of Speaker. The two-term member of Parliament, who also served as Deputy Speaker, was elected to the Speaker's chair on merit, not because of her spouse. It is wrong, and it harks back to a bygone age before women's empowerment to say that she or any woman should be disqualified for any post because of the job of her spouse. The Speaker was duly elected by the House and is a competent and capable Speaker. I strongly object to the position that the Leader of Opposition has taken.
In the context of whether Juliet Holness should step down, Mark Golding shared that that decision is left to her and her husband.
I personally think that on reflection and seeing the way it has unfolded, it would be best if we had a Speaker who one could say is independent of the government. That decision is already made. And for her to step aside or not is really up to her and her husband. Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's pretty much the roundup in the context of, what is happening. So I'm just going to navigate to the screen where you can see the WhatsApp number. All right, there we go. So you can also call in and share. Would love to hear your views. So again, we keep it real respectful. We do not bash anyone because we want to maintain our safe space here. And guys, the easiest way to support this space is to hit the like button and the subscription button. I believe we can do so much better with the likes right now. And we want to hear from you. So Chris Reckley, I see Chris Reckley there sharing the chat that Andrew time come. All right, your wife should not be speaker. So would love to hear your views in that context too. In the context of, should Juliet Holness step down as Speaker of the House? Max Morgan, hello, thanks for liking the live. Ron, welcome, Ron Thomas, and blessings to you too. We want to kind of understand in the context of timing, remember this the speaker was selected, months ago, almost I guess coming up to like 6 months. And so why is it at this point the opposition leader is saying, okay, we're not for this, when as you perhaps by now would have recognized the speaker was then nominated by Delroy Chuck and was seconded by Philip Caldwell from the People's National Party. So, some questions there. Or is it a case now where because the opposition leader, they're saying that there are some issues in the context of reports being tabled, why they're having this issue now with the fact that Juliet Holness is also the Prime Minister's wife? Would love to hear from you. And does it matter if she's the Prime Minister's wife in the context of being the Speaker of the House? We want to hear from you in this context. And why at that time the opposition, they weren't saying we're strongly opposing, Juliet Holness being the Speaker of the House. So we want to hear from you again. We learn from each other, so we keep it real and respectful. And so we're opening, the line there. So give us a call. Don't be afraid. And the big question, what about the MP's behavior in Parliament? Government MPs walking out, plus you have, members there running out, go away, then fire you. So we would love to hear from you in the context of all that has happened on Tuesday and just wanting to hear your views. So let me just check the line here just to make sure. So guys, even if you just want to call and say hello, would really appreciate that just to ensure that the line is up and running. It should be. But Rurian, I'm coming over to you, just to find out, what are your views at this point after hearing that, roundup.
All right, sorry about my background noise. I have a
That's
little bit of
totally
background
okay.
noise
It's
here,
life.
but yeah, I think the little guy want to comment on this topic. He's really interested as well. But you know, it has to come back to policy and what is, established in policy. And if if policy states that the prime minister's wife cannot be the speaker of the house, then I would say the opposition leader would have grounds on which to speak. But the second part to this, or the other tier to this, is that she has been in place for 5 months and nobody opposed until no, or knowingly opposed until no. So, I am wondering what is the objective of this, if this is some sort of, mischievous kind of behavior, or I don't know. But this is what I am saying. If it is that she is duly elected, if, as I said, if policy states that she is, fit for the job based on her, qualification, and that she's a member of parliament, then personally, I think there should not be an issue. And the other thing is to, if the opposition leader, because actions, your actions have consequences. If the opposition leader is going to take 5 months to figure out something like this, and that he doesn't like something, then the question might be asked: do you want a person like this to be leading you? Being that we're heading toward a general elections. So, things like these, you have to weigh your words carefully and know what battles to take on. And personally, I think that Mark Golden and the PNP has blundered on this one because, this wasn't something worth taking up. And at the time of year two, where the budget is soon to be read, he's making his contributions here. I don't think it's the appropriate place here to discuss that either. I would want my opposition leader to be talking more about, you know, getting Jamaica to a better financial climate or situation. So that's where my views are on this matter. I don't know if you agree with what I am saying, but I would love to hear what you have to say. So, if you agree with me, whether or not you agree with me, I'm going to ask you guys to pop a few likes here. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. If you haven't commented yet, to let us hear what your views are. Please do, and share it so we can hear from your friends as well. Natasha Lee, I'm passing this back over to you to hear what your views are on this matter so far. But great roundup, I must say, great roundup. It gives a full synopsis of what has happened as it relates to the speaker, the appointment of the latest speaker to the House. All right, back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. So you shared some points there, and I totally get what you're saying in the context of the opposition leader and timing. But one of the things that I would perhaps, I guess I said at the beginning, is that perhaps the opposition, they are having some issues regarding some reports being tabled. And I say issues in quotation because I cannot speak definitively to what those issues are. So I suspect that, bringing Juliet Holness into his presentation like this was also a point in terms of hitting hard at the government. So for me, I kind of get what you're saying too, in the sense where his presentation was not the traditional budget kind of speech that you would expect, because he did get the opportunity to finish. Well, he took the opportunity to finish, his presentation outside of the house after the walkout because, they did not have the quorum to continue. And I appreciate the fact that, he did that so that we could get a sense of, what the remainder of his presentation would be like. So kudos to Mark in doing that. But as you mentioned, to me too, it's a little bit different in terms of the speech and the budget and what you would be expecting. It's more, to me, it's more like, ready for this election, and I'm ready to get you Prime Minister. I am coming, mark my words, I'm coming. So I kind of get that sense in the context of that. But you also, ask some good questions, and that is pretty much, where we're trying to get in terms of, the opposition supported, her nomination. They seconded it. Philip Palwell was the member who seconded, Juliet Holness. At that time, she was the Prime Minister's wife. And so what is the situation now? And I am saying perhaps it's regarding those reports that they're saying are not being tabled or come into the committees, etc. So I am not too certain of that, but something there. And you know that from local government elections, Mark is on a high, and I feel that he's trying to maintain that. And I guess that's a part of it. In terms of the walkout, that could be a strategy by the government side, just to prevent the opposition leader from furthering his points, his presentation, because the government recognize that once they walk out, there would not be quorum in terms of allowing the sitting to continue. So they figured that they had that power in terms of that dynamic to use, which they did. And however, Mark Golding said, okay, I'll go outside and I'll make my presentation. So in that context, we are still trying to figure out, what it is that both sides were trying to achieve in this context. So we also get this other side now from the governing side, where they're saying that the opposition's statements against against Juliet Holness, it's really gender related, and so we're getting that aspect as well. Likewise, the opposition is saying no, it has nothing to do with gender issues. That's not what we are dealing with here, or what we're saying here. So that's another aspect to that. Japis for stock. Welcome, family. We're here. Guys, please remember to hit the like button, the share button, and the subscription button. Let us continue to hit the like button so that persons who may not have their post notification, turned on, they're able to just see that we're here and just come over and join us. So would love to get a caller. So the WhatsApp number is on screen. Give us a call. We want to hear your views. Would love to hear from you. So don't be afraid, to give us a call. So that's pretty much, where we're at there. And, then the other part to this is that, after things, Mark said what he said, and then the question was like, should Juliet step down? He was pretty much saying it's up to her and her husband, it's up to her and her husband. So what is it then, the opposition leader wants? You just want to make the statement, or if it's a case where you feel that she's not being, I guess, ethical in her duties, then would you want her to step down? How do we fix the problem if Juliet is the problem in the context of, the opposition? So definitely, some points there to dissect in that context. So again, we're here and wanting to hear from you. All right. So please give us a call. Would love to hear from you. Rural, I'm not sure persons, they don't usually like to call first, but it's pretty easy. So I'm coming over to you, Rural, to find out if you have anything else you'd like to share in the context of this happening.
Yeah, there are lots of different levels to this too. I alluded to a bit of it before, and I have a few more to add to it. So, the fact that it was a budget presentation, as I said, I was thinking, probably that was the opportune time to discuss that issue that Mark brought up. I think he could have focused more on, the financial aspect, since that's the forum that he was expected to contribute to. So that's one. And the second thing is that the order of the parliamentarians after, was very disappointing. I heard you making mention of it, or aspects of it. But, eh, Andrew was pretty upset based on what was communicated by Mark. and he decided that he's going to walk out, and you know, his colleagues decided that they were going to join him. But the way the parliamentarians behaved afterward, I'm thinking that if these guys are behaving like this as leaders, then what does that say to us as Jamaicans, as a regular Jamaican? And you want leaders not only to be leading by doing their job as a prime minister, as a minister of finance, as an opposition leader, but in terms of their deportment as well, you want them to be somebody that you can say, all right, look at the prime minister, and this is how he carries himself, or look at the minister of finance or the opposition leader. Some of the utterances that were made, in the heat of the moment, I might add, was unbecoming of leaders, and that's what I wanted to add to this discussion, Natasha. Let me think. Let me hear what you think about that.
No, for sure. Like, in terms of what we're seeing, I'm not sure if that is exemplary in the context of, leaders there, not what we're expecting for sure. So, in this context too, we balance, situations. And so I am going to just read this media release. Is it a media release? Yes, it's a media release from the People's National Party. It's from Ethne Miller Simpson, co-chair of the PNP Gender Commission. All right, so I am going to just read this for us to, get an understanding of what the PNP is saying in the context of the gender issues that I shared, that the Jamaica Labour Party is pretty much saying, you know this is an attack on a woman, the wife, Juliet Holness here. And let's go to the PNP. So it is titled from the PNP, poor use of the gender card. All right. The hard-won gains made by women's organizations, and advocates for the rights of women should not be used for expediency, political or otherwise. Neither is it a get out of jail card akin to the game of Monopoly. The imagery of this violation being waved like a flag by the Gender Minister, Honorable Olivia Grange, when it is convenient to do so, is worrisome and borders on being disingenuous, says co-chair of the PNP Gender Commission, Ethne Miller Simpson. Supporters of gender parity and advocates for women's economic empowerment assert that women should be seen and compensated as equals. When the argument of competence versus gender arises, the emphasis is on competence. In other words, a woman should not be rewarded simply because of her gender, but based on her performance and competence in getting the job done. Similarly, women's achievements should not be viewed as a penalty against them, but as part of the journey towards parity. Good governance is about measuring how public institutions conduct public affairs, manage resources, and uphold human rights free from abuse and corruption, and with due regard for the rule of law. A compromised institutional process where the Speaker does not act independently of the head of government is not conducive to forward-looking development in Jamaica's political governance, asserts Miller Simpson. The concern lies not with the gender of the Speaker, but with her performance. The Speaker's actions, such as the non-tabling of the Attorney General reports, preventing timely reviews, and not sharing opinions with other parliamentarians, raise significant governance issues. Increasing unease among Jamaicans with the striking conflict of practice, protocol, and clear error in good governance is evident, the best practice of ensuring that spouses or partners are not employed in the same financial entity or corporate office is well established. If this is enforced, good governance If this is enforced, good governance is in companies. Why not the same in politics? From all accounts, this is not a gender violation, but a governance point of order. All right, so this is the media release here from the PNP. So as I, kind of alluded to earlier, they have an issue with the speaker in the context, and they said it here, the non-tabling of Attorney General reports, preventing timely reviews, etc. So that's there. So that's one point that I would like to highlight. The other part of this is the letter here is pretty much saying, as the speaker, she does not act independently of the head of government. All right. And that is pretty much not, forward looking development. So I'm still asking the question, at what point did the PNP recognize that she was, the wife of the prime minister? And then the other part in the context of this letter, they're saying, in the context of, best practices, right? So in terms of spouses or partners, not employed in the same, company or financial entity, why can that not be in politics? And so that's a big question. When we look at politics, when we think about conflict of interest, if we're going to look at it that way, we had like father and son, we have husband and wife in politics. There are different, I guess, relationships, within the politics itself. And so I'm not sure how we want to look at that, if we're going to look at it from a bigger point, a bigger perspective, in the sense where we're going to remove, any possible relationships within, the government, within the parliament, how would that look? I mean, if persons are electing, voting for, say, a Juliet, a Andrew, or, voting for a Vaz and a Mr. Vaz and a Mrs. Vaz, like, if people want them to represent them, how do we counter that? So, Rurian, I'm coming over to you. So that's the letter there from the PNP in the context of, saying don't use this gender card, but still some questions there, because, I am kind of thinking that they're becoming, having an issue at this point because they feel as if the reports are not being tabled. I cannot speak to the reports, in that context, but I guess that's the sore point there for the PNP, because it could not be at this point you're just recognizing that, this, Juliet Holness is the wife of the prime minister. So I'm still trying to understand that point. So guys in the chat, comment, give us a call. The WhatsApp number is on screen. Hit the like button, hit the share button. Would love to hear from you. So Rurian, I'm circling back to you.
Yes, Natasha Lee, I'm here. Interesting points. I think the most interesting points that was made was that she did not table certain things. I don't know how true that is. They didn't table certain reports. If she is not carrying out her role in the position, then I could understand the merit for their displeasure with her being the speaker of the house. But I personally believe, Juliet being the wife rather of Andrew Holness has nothing to do with this, situation. So that's my view. If she has a role to play, then she has a role to play. So I don't know the fullness as it relates to the situation, as it relates to the tabling. I don't know how often she's supposed to table these things, I don't know. I guess I don't know. It could be every 5 months, every 2 months, every month. But obviously, what has happened it is causing some issues for the opposition leader, and that's what has happened there. But if she's not doing her job, then she could be called out on it. But otherwise, I do not see any issues with with this situation of Juliet Holness being the Speaker of the House. So for me, in essence, that what I'm saying, if it is something that has to do with her performance based on her job description, then I would support that point put forward by the PNP. But on the other hand, where they're mentioning that it could be because of the fact that she is so close to the Prime Minister, then I am in disagreement with that aspect. I'm passing back over to you, Natasha.
All right, thanks for sharing those points there, Ruran. And just by way of updating you, so remember, like in the roundup, Philip Palwell, supported the nomination of, Juliet Holness as he seconded the nomination. So just here seeing that Philip Palwell is saying that he supported the nomination of Juliet Holness as House Speaker only because it's the traditional thing to do. So I'm just going to try and get some, clips here just to play these recordings for you so we can hear some more. And also in this context, opposition leader Mark Golding, went further in that context. He suggested that Mr. Powell did not follow tradition on his own. So that's interesting. So I'm just going to get those recordings, played for you. So let's go to the recordings.
Firstly, since Madam Speaker, I join with my colleague in congratulating you on the ascension to the chair of Speaker of this great House. In congratulating you, Madam Speaker, I wish, as I did before the start of the meeting, to say that early in your tenure, it is my hope that both leader of government business and myself will be able to sit with you to look at some of the issues that we have had to deal with in the past and to see how we can share, collective wisdom. We wish you well. We genuinely want you to do well so that your tenure can be very successful.
All right, so that was Philip Palwell, and I'm assuming after he supported Juliet Holness in terms of, seconding, her nomination, and then after she, being voted the speaker, then he gave that, speech. All right, let's continue here.
Since independence, every elected government has been able to secure the speaker that an elected government has put forward. It has never happened that an opposition objects to the speaker proposed. And we're fulfilling a tradition. It has happened when we are government, and I have been a long-standing member of the parliament. And it will, I believe, continue to happen, that the formality of electing a speaker is just that. The government, as the majority player in the parliament, can elect whoever it wishes. It is the tradition of the opposition to second it. And in fact, a vote was taken and it was passed unanimously. Yeah.
All right, so that's Mr. Palwell there saying, it's a tradition. So the government, they will select the speaker by way of having the majority in the house, and it's just normal on both sides. So if it, for example, if it was a PNP in government, they will select a speaker, and the JLP will just work with it, vice versa. So that's what pretty much, Mr. Palwell is saying here in this context, in the context of, tradition. So let's continue here.
I'm not sitting in judgment of the leader of opposition business. He was put in a position with no prior consultation. We weren't told what was happening. He came to Parliament, I wasn't there, and he was presented by us with a script by the clerk and told this is a tradition. And the tradition is that the opposition seconds the motion, because the idea is that the speaker is supposed to be independent and have the trust and confidence of all parliamentarians on both sides.
All right, so Mr. Powell, they're sounding a little bit different from, Mark Golding. So what Mark Golding is pretty much saying here that, I guess they did not understand what they were doing. They were presented with a script, and I guess from the clerk there. And so that, in that sense, they just followed and did what, I guess in terms of supporting the House leader. And so he's saying that, she should be independent. So let's go back to Mark Golding. Let's listen to Mark again.
I'm not sitting in judgment of the leader of opposition business. He was put in a position with no prior consultation. We weren't told what was happening. He came to Parliament, I wasn't there, and he was presented by us with a script by the clerk and told this is a tradition. And the tradition is that the opposition seconds the motion, because the idea is that the speaker is supposed to be independent and have the trust and confidence of all parliamentarians on both sides.
All right, so Mark Golding is pretty much saying that, Philip Powell did not know what was happening. He was just presented with a script, and you heard Philip Powell saying previously that, it's a tradition, and we just work with it, from either sides pretty much. So, what is happening there? Not too sure, but, that's what the opposition leader is saying there. And let's go to another recording here.
My issue is that she has not displayed by her conduct that kind of independence, because she has continued on a course of action, which is to delay the tabling of reports, important reports that no doubt may criticize aspects of what's happening in the public sector. And we are not getting to see them on a timely basis.
All right, so there you go again, in the context of some more development, just so that you can have, a good understanding of what is happening. So we like to, bring the information to you so that you can, make your own decision or come to your own conclusion. We're not here for you to pick a particular side, but we want to hear from you. So while I am here waiting for a caller, I'm just checking here to see if I'm missing any calls, and perhaps not, or did I? Perhaps not. All right, so we're just here and waiting for a caller. And Rurian, I'm just coming over to you just to find out if what do you believe is happening here? So it's as if we're getting, a kind of a mixed vibe from the opposition in the context of, what is going on. Mark is saying, listen, we don't know, Mr. Powell wasn't aware of what was happening. He wasn't there. And they were just presented with a script and told that it's tradition, they should just work with it, and they did whatever. But in the context of, Philip Powell, I think he said that, having had so many, years of experience in politics, somebody must have understood what this means. All right, so let us take this caller. Hello, caller, you're live. Hello? Yes, Colin, go ahead.
I think that just the thing that the Prime Minister, why is the Speaker really conflict of interest, no matter which way you put it. And it shouldn't be coming up now, This should be, the opposition should rectify it early. It gain more weight till now before they started to go ahead is completed. The next thing I believe is that the minister was really rude yesterday toward an opposition.
Not actually, sorry to cut your caller. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of echo. I'm not sure if you guys you can fix that.
Prime Minister is supposed to know that criticism comes from God.
Right.
But supposed to stand up and take it and deal with it, and then after the opposition finishes that, then he after and he get the chance to do his presentation. That's just my take.
Yeah, some very good points there. Very, very good points. So
if
if you don't mind, do you mind sharing your name and where you're calling from? If you don't mind sharing.
I'm calling from Atlanta.
I didn't hear you.
I'm Ralph. I'm calling from Atlanta.
Okay,
Okay,
Ralph
Ralph
from
from
Atlanta. Is
Atlanta. Is
this
this
your
your
first
first
time
time
here?
here?
Yes, indeed.
Oh,
Oh,
thanks for
thanks for
being
being
here
here
and
and
thanks for
thanks for
calling
calling
and
and
welcome to
welcome to
Voices in
Voices in
Education.
Education.
Thank you. Hear more from me, okay?
All
All
right,
right,
thanks.
thanks.
Okay.
All right, so thank you so much, Ralph, for calling in. All right, so you see, guys, you can definitely call in. Would love to hear from you, and some great points there. Rurian, I'm coming over.
Hello, not necessarily still here. Wasn't able to hear Ralph that well, but if you don't mind, you could just reiterate some of the points that he raised. It was a little bit echoey. I was trying to get your attention, but it was good to have a caller in though. That was good. As it relates to the situation at hand and the last few clips that you played, with Mr. Powell and Mr. Golden, it's obvious that let me just put it there, I'm confused because we're getting different things from different members of the party, and it's not sounding as they're speaking with one voice. So it sounds like everybody is doing what they feel like, or as they would say, acting according to tradition. So like that's probably the best way I could put it. But it's they're not speaking with the same voice, and that speaks volume to the party.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I'm seeing Ron there in the chat saying politicians will always play politics. That's a good one there, Ron. So you mentioned, so Ralph was sharing some good points in the context of, the Prime Minister, walking out, should have, found a better way to handle that situation. He also shared that, Juliet Holness, there is, a conflict of interest, but this should have been dealt with from the get-go, from the start. And so, that, some very good points there. So again, welcome, welcome. If you're just tuning in, please remember to hit the like button, the share button, and the subscription button. We can do better with the like. So right now, just close the chat. So just close that X and touch the thumbs up button and let us get the likes up to at least 40. We can do better with the likes, and I'm begging you a couple subscriptions. So hit the subscription button. I'm going to start out with just 6. So can we get 6 subscribers? So hit the subscription button. All right, would love to hear from you. All right, so don't be afraid to give us a call. We want to hear from you. All right, so what are your views on all that has happened in the parliament on Tuesday? So give us a call. Would love to hear from you. So, we gave you the roundup in the context of, what has happened and, just for you to get an understanding so that you can share your perspective. Again, we are not, sharing a perspective that we want you to have or to force one on you. We want to hear from each other and, learn from each other because we see things differently. And that is important. There is so much richness in diversity. And so we want to hear from you. So give us a call. Give us a call. And, let us continue to talk about this situation. So, Rurian, what would be like a solution in terms of moving forward? So, the speaker is the speaker, what's happening? Like, and Kevin, welcome. Kevin Thompson, welcome. What if she was a minister? Would they have a problem? I don't believe, how does it work? I don't believe a minister can be a speaker, Kevin, right? If you're a minister, so like a cabinet minister, you cannot be the speaker, all right? So you cannot be a speaker if you're a minister, or unless you're asking the question if she had a ministry, if they're going to say because she's the prime minister's wife, that's why she has a portfolio. And perhaps that's why she hasn't gotten one, because people are going to perhaps say because she's the prime minister's wife. I don't know. But welcome, Kevin, and thanks for sharing there in the chat. And yes, guys, close the X and press the thumbs up. Let's get the likes up to 40. We can do it. We can do it. And before you leave, I know you're popping in and out. Hit the like button and the subscription button and tell a friend to tell another friend about the Voices in Education. So, Rurian, coming over to you. All right. So, how do we move forward? So, this is the situation that we're in, and I guess you are going to say that you're confused based on what is happening. But what would be a way forward? Because when asked, the opposition leader is saying, should Miss Holness, Mrs. Holness, step down, or and he's saying it's up to her and her husband. So if it was up to her and her husband, why did the opposition supported the like? It's kind of, as you said, it's kind of confusing, and not saying that it's the right thing in the context of what has happened, but just the back and forth, just trying to understand their letter, just trying to understand what it is that they would want. As I said, I believe the sore point for the opposition is concerning, in quotation, those tabling the documents, right? And I feel that's where all of this is coming from. And they're saying, you know what, perhaps because they're the prime minister's wife, why you're not doing a job, or in quotation mark, because we don't have any, proof to that. So, but that's what the opposition, they're saying, that the prime minister's wife, the speaker of the house, is not, tabling, the reports, I guess, from the attorney general. And that is something, I guess, that they want in that context. So I feel that, they're perhaps saying, something right, yes, so, and I because you're the prime minister wife. Ruren, I'm coming over to you.
Oh well, for me, this decision is, so let me explain how I understand this. Mrs. Holness was appointed as Speaker of the House, and everyone was happy. And the problem is that the PNP is foreseeing that the reports aren't coming over, and that's where they're crying foul, saying that because, or maybe it's because she's the prime minister's wife, that is one of the things or the issues that are hampering those reports. So if that's how the situation is, then there shouldn't be a problem with her appointment based on principle. Because she's there and you're okay. If she's there, then it is okay. The problem started happening, or one of the issues, is that the reports aren't coming over. So for me, it begs to just figure out what is happening. Is the opposition leader, well, is the opposition leader saying that Mrs. Holness isn't doing her job because the wife of the Prime Minister? And it could be interpreted that way. But, in all fairness to Mrs. Holness, she was elected 5 months after she has been in the post. Then the problem, so-called problems has started. So if she was okay for, the first 4 or 5 months in the post without anybody having any problem, and I think, she is, or if she can maintain her post, maintain her position there because no one had a problem. I would say the issue is with the reports not coming over and the association that is being made with her, relationship with the prime minister. So, I think on the relationship with the prime minister, but we focus on the reports or the job description that she has that she's not measuring up to. So that is how I would look on this situation. I would not put the relationship that Mr. Holness and Mrs. Holness that they have into this any at all because it wasn't an issue from day one. If it was a red flag from day one, then the opposition leader, Mr. Paulin, who seconded that nomination, they should have, stated their claim from that point and not, as they would say, so-called follow tradition and just support whoever is selected by the other party. So that is how I look on it from one perspective. Another perspective would be to go back to policy, all the policies that surrounds the appointment of the Speaker of the House. If nothing states that the Prime Minister's wife cannot be, or if it were the other way around where we had a female prime minister and her husband was appointed the speaker of the house, if there is no policy in the constitution that states that this is not tolerated, then I don't see why she should be removed from the position. If there's an issue with her not carrying out or fulfilling her role in the position, then that would be cause for considering her resignation. So that's my take on this situation. Passing back over to you, Natasha.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing there, Ruri, and lots to pick out from what you have said there, and great points in all of as what you would say, all of this confusion for sure. And I get what some persons are saying in the context of conflict of interest and just being the speaker and prime minister's wife. And I always say we can have a whole conversation about conflict of interest. And sometimes as individuals we would say, no, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm an ethical person. But you see, subjectivity, you cannot ignore that we have our own biases, whether we want to accept it or not. And again, that is something that I'm going to leave because we can have a whole conversation about ethical perspectives and conflict of interest. And so not having a policy stating something explicitly does not mean that you need to do it. So I'll just say that, and this has nothing to do with Miss Holness's appointment, but just saying that sometimes we might have policy, sometimes it may not be, but then if you know the right thing, do the right thing because it is the right thing to do. All right. So, as you mentioned in the context of this confusion, and, when we heard from Mr. Powell, and perhaps I need to play that back so that persons can hear from Mr. Powell himself. So I'm going to get that ready. Cheryl Cunningham, welcome. I see your comment there, and Cheryl is saying, they thought, she would do a better job, and obviously she's not. And so that's what Cheryl is saying, I guess, that the PNP, they supported Juliet because they believe that she would do well in the position, but now Juliet not doing good. So PNP is just saying, we don't want. But I guess that's a different story to say, we don't want you anymore. Initially, we believed in you and that you would do what we are expecting you to do. But at this point, we are not getting that, so we don't want you anymore. That's a different story as opposed to, we did not know that this is the situation, or we were kind of forced or tricked into just following whatever. We're just told that this was tradition. And we're talking about experienced parliamentarians now. We're not talking about newbies into the parliament. So, you know, it's it's just kind of, as I said, rural and confusing, because I am still trying to understand how, just hearing from Paul Will himself saying, it's tradition, either side select who they want to select and the other side just work with it. So if it was PNP in power, we choose who we want to, to be the speaker, and the JLP just work with it. It's just how it happens. That's just how the politics go. So then for the opposition leader now coming to say, he wasn't present and the leader was not, that is Farwell now, was not aware that, the clerk the clerk just gave him the script and pretty much to work with it, man, work with it. All right. Cock Rooster, welcome, welcome. And I tell you about power struggle. I tell you about power, guys. We asked for 40 likes, and just close the chat and hit the like button. And we know just 6 subscribers. So let us do that. All right, let us do that. We can definitely do that and get there. So easiest way to support us. And also hit the like button, hit the share button, and the subscription button. Tell a friend to tell another friend about the Voices in Education. So I'm trying to get back to the recordings, and we'll hear from Mr. Paulwell and the opposition leader. So I'm just trying to get that ready again for you so that you can hear. So what again Mr. Paulwell was saying is that it's just tradition in terms of supporting, Mrs. Holness. So I'm just going to get that from you. I'm just going to get that recording for you. So I guess you'll hear, first you'll hear Philip Paulwell in terms of congratulating Juliet Holness as Speaker of the House, and then we'll move into the other recordings from Paulwell and the opposition leader, Mark Golding. So let me just get that ready for you.
Madam Speaker, I join with my colleague in congratulating you on the ascension to the chair of Speaker of this great House. In congratulating you, Madam Speaker, I wish, as I did before the start of the meeting, to say that early in your tenure, it is my hope that both leader of government business and myself will be able to sit with you to look at some of the issues that we have had to deal with in the past and to see how we can share, collective wisdom. We wish you well. We genuinely want you to do well so that your tenure can be very successful.
All right, so that was Philip Paulwell, giving, I guess that, big speech there to Juliet Holness. And let us continue
let us continue. Let us continue here with another recording.
Firstly, since independence, every elected government has been able to secure the speaker that an elected government has put forward. It has never happened that an opposition objects to the speaker proposed. And we're fulfilling a tradition. It has happened when we are government, and I have been a long-standing member of the parliament, and it will, I believe, continue to happen, that the formality of electing a speaker is just that. The government, as a majority player in the parliament, can elect whoever it wishes. It is the tradition of the opposition to second it. And in fact, a vote was taken and it was passed unanimously.
Yeah.
So again, it's just saying, you know, it's tradition. So it's saying, I guess I supported her nomination because it's just tradition. Perhaps he's trying to say, no, not that I really supported her, but it happens on both sides because as PNP, we benefited from it based on what he's saying there. So, you know, it shouldn't be a problem. You know, either party is going to choose who they want, and formality, tradition, the other party just work with it. All right. So let's go to the opposition leader, Mark Golding.
I'm not sitting in judgment of the leader of opposition business. He was put in a position with no prior consultation. We weren't told what was happening. He came to Parliament, I wasn't there, and he was presented by us with a script by the clerk and told this is a tradition. And the tradition is that the opposition seconds the motion, because the idea is that the speaker is supposed to be independent and have the trust and confidence of all parliamentarians on both sides.
And here the opposition leader is pretty much saying that Philip Paulwell, you know, pretty much was unaware of what was happening. So this is the Philip Paulwell who is just talking, saying how experienced he is and what happens based on his experience. And let's go to the final one here.
My issue is that she has not displayed by her conduct that kind of independence, because she has continued on a course of action, which is to delay the tabling of reports, important reports that no doubt may criticize aspects of what's happening in the public sector. And we are not getting to see them on a timely basis.
All right, so there you have it. And that's pretty much, you know, what's happening there in the context of all this, you know, confusion, as Rurian would perhaps, you know, put it. All right, so just checking the chat now to see if there are any, you know, new comments in the chat. So let me just refresh my chat here and just check in to see what is happening here. Not seeing any new comments. And for sure, we can hit the like button. Just close the X and hit the like button, and also hit that subscription button. The WhatsApp number is on screen. All right, please give us a call. Would love to hear from you. All right, so please give us a call. Would love to hear from you. You know, what are your views? Even if you just want to call and say hello, would really take that hello from this side. All right, so welcome. If this is your first time here, welcome to the Voices in Education. This is a safe space where we share and learn from each other. We do it in a respectful way to ensure that we're maintaining our safe space so we don't bash anyone. And we understand that we hold different views, you know, we share different views, different perspectives, and that is totally okay. All right, so we share, we learn from each other. And so you feel that you belong, you know, to this space. You feel a sense of belonging. You feel, you know, respected, and that's the kind of vibe that we create in this space. So if this is your first time here, let me know in the chat. Would love to give you a big Voices in Education welcome. Calvin, man, would love to hear your voice. You know, it's not just voice, but it is voices, you know, our voices. So give us a call. Would love to hear from you. And please remember to hit the like button, the share button, and the subscription button. We can do better with the likes and the subscription. So let's keep doing that. Close the X and just do the do. All right. So who is going to call us next, Ryan? I'm not sure, but I'm coming over to you to find out if you have anything else that can clear up this confusion or whatever is happening. But because you use the word confusion, so I'm just coming over to you. Ryan? All right, not hearing Ryan, so hopefully Ryan wasn't disconnected. So soon, I guess Ryan will come on in when he's able to. But in the meantime, I'm just checking the chat to find out. So, guys in the chat, how do we move forward in the context of what has happened, and also in the context of the MPs and their behavior in Parliament? From especially the government side, and then also the opposition, because they were there, with their talks and telling people to get out or whatever. So would love to hear from you. Is this becoming of leaders of our country? So would love to hear from you in that context, or just about anything that you'd like to share. Would want to hear from you. So you can share in the chat, or you can call the WhatsApp number that is on screen. I'm just trying to see here, and I'm not seeing, unless the messages are coming in and I'm not getting them, but I'm not seeing anything new in the chat. All right. So, and I'm not seeing any calls coming in. So I'm just waiting on you. So welcome. Give us a call, man. Would love to hear from you. And Rurian, once you're ready, would love to hear from you again in the context of, all of this, how, is this going to be like perhaps one of those things we just don't hear anything more about it, and then something else? So would love to hear from you. So welcome. If you're just tuning in, welcome, welcome. All right, so just going to circle the chat again, just to make sure that I am not missing anyone. I'm not seeing any new comments coming in. All right, let's do this. Roll call. Who is here? Comment in the chat and let me know that you're here. So I'll know if the chat is working now. So let's do a quick, roll call, and we'll see if messages are coming in the chat. So let's do a quick roll call. So if you're here, just comment. Even if you're just going to comment, hi, hello, just comment in the chat, and let us see what is happening from this side. So navigating a lot here. So Kevin, I see Kevin's comments, so that is good. And Kevin is saying we should be talking about the budget that Mark, I guess that Mark was presenting, I guess, about the budget and how he would finance his plan for the country. But look at what we're talking about. That's true. And in that context, Kevin, I shared earlier that Mark Golding's budget presentation was not one that is customary to see in the context of a budget. It was more like, yes, I guess there are things regarding the budget, but he came out, it was like election speech, Prime Minister, time for you to go. And it was like he came out hitting very hard, I would say. He came out hitting very hard, and it's not the typical budget presentation, I would say. in that context. But he came out hitting very, very hard. So okay, I'm going to talk about corruption. It's not just like finance or making those connections in the context of, he came out very hard. So Kevin, if you'd like to call in and share, Kevin, would love to hear from you, Mr. Thompson. All right, so if you want to call Tomo, call and let us talk. Would love to hear from you if you're able to. All right, so would definitely love to hear from you guys in the chat. All right, so welcome, welcome. If you're just tuning in, welcome. All right, please remember to hit the like button, share button, and the subscription button. Brian, I'm not sure if you're still here. Not hearing
I
you.
am still here.
Okay,
I was a
wonderful.
bit absent, for a little while, but I'm back here now. Interesting points made there by Kevin. And this is my question to you, Natasha. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one, but at what point during the opposition leader's speech did the Prime Minister and his colleagues walk out? Because it was, yeah, so just to get some light on that would be good. Did he make most of his presentation already? Was this at the end of his presentation? Was this when how he started out his presentation? I am,
I
I
don't
would
have
love.
all the answers for you, but what I can tell you is that the walkout happened after he started. So he was talking about, I guess, the Integrity Commission, and then he was talking about, I guess, he refers to them, I believe, as is it the illicit six? I don't want to twist his words, but he was just talking about, it was on that aspect, and then that's where, the the Speaker of the House, that came about, and he was talking about the Integrity Commission, and as a result of, their report, the previous speaker, resigned, and so it was within that context, and then leading up to Juliet Holness. But what I can say, based on my understanding, is that the members, including the government, they would have had an idea of what the opposition leader's speech would be, because the speech was, I guess, printed and made available to them. So that is why it is also being said that it could be seen as a strategy by the government MPs to walk out on the opposition leader, knowing very well that if they walk out, he won't be able to finish his presentation because they would not have quorum. The PNP by itself, they won't have quorum. And so, in that way, to prevent him from, I guess, jabbing and throwing those heavy punches, that could be seen as a way to move, and to prevent the opposition leader from, making its full presentation. But then we saw that he went outside and he, talked to the media, and I guess shared the rest of what he wanted to say. He did a press conference, so just to get his side in terms of, what is happening out there. So that's what I can share with you, Rurian.
Okay, thanks. I'm looking in the chat here, and Kevin is saying that it was at the end. So it's sad that so we have to deal with matters.
I'm
as,
not
as I
sure if
was
it was at the end because he did not complete. He was so, but I guess he went outside. So, but Kevin shared. So thanks for sharing there, Kevin.
Yeah, but despite despite all of that, it I go back to the principle of saying that, you know, do we talk about everything at any time, and that's what I want to figure out, if he has addressed the budget in the way that you would want him to address it as the opposition leader, finding aspects of it that he believes, or the PNP believes could be contentious, and areas in which they would want the government to be, they would want to challenge the government as it relates to the budget. Or it's just a case where you're given the opportunity to speak, so you talk. Because I'm thinking about this from a classroom standpoint. If you give a student a particular question to write on, would you credit them marks if they go off target, drift away from the question, or would you focus on what the question was asking for? So, I understand that he had certain issues as it relates to integrity and all of that, but I'm thinking that his time could have been better used if he had focused more on a bit more on the budgetary issues. So that's my
Well,
contribution, Natasha.
okay, I guess too that a part of his presentation I guess at some point included, making or, Bob Marley a national hero. So I think he said, when they form the next government, they would be conferring the Order of National Hero on, Bob Marley, I guess in that sense. So I guess that was something that was said there, and I'm going to try my best to get some, other information to share in that context. So I'm going to do some checks in that context to see if I can get, some highlights from his presentation to share with you guys. So welcome, welcome. If you're just tuning in, welcome. Please remember to hit the like button, the share button, and the subscription button. All right. So, and give us a call. Would love to hear from you. Would definitely love to hear from you. Chat is pretty quiet. So, Rurian, I guess you'll have to keep talking to me while I just try and see how best I can access this information that I am looking for. And, again, it's just a sad moment in the sense where, we're not expecting this kind of, display from our leaders. And that was definitely unfortunate that had happened. All right. And for sure, having, that walkout is definitely, not good. It was a budget debate. And so you can imagine that, a lot of persons were definitely wanting to hear, what the opposition leader was going to share in that context. And so again, I give him some credit, for going outside and getting the media so that we were able to get an understanding of, what is, or some points, or I'm not sure if it was all, in terms of what is in his presentation. So that is definitely important. And, in terms of, some other initiative, they're saying that the Peace Management Initiative, PMI, will be revitalized under a future People's National Party government. So I guess that's another part there from the opposition leader or from the PNP in the context of their presentation. So just trying to get a bit more information for you in that context. All right, so welcome. If you're just tuning in, welcome. All right, please remember to hit the like button, the share button, and the subscription button. And by now you would have, I guess, heard, that, the opposition leader criticized the Speaker of the House for being the wife of the Prime Minister. That led to a walkout of Parliament by the government MPs. All right, so yeah.
Yes, Natasha, just to join in you trying your back here. Um, there was a little bit of I was listening to the clips that you played, and there were a little bit of a few things came up when Mr. Golding was speaking, Mark Golding, and he said that Mr. Falwell read, was given a script by the clerk of of the House or clerk of court or something to that effect,
Clerk of the
and he
House,
just
Parliament, yeah.
yeah. So that to me with the use of the word tradition by Mr. Falwell, you know, I am wondering, the fact that they say script. It, do you believe that there is some form of acting going on? Because, you know, based on what they're saying, is that certain things are scripted. Meaning, I understand that there are things that you need to say, you have to document it, and um, I'm just looking on it from this standpoint where, you know, Mr. Paul has been, a politician forever, and there are certain things that I guess he should know for sure. But it's just sad that everybody is everybody's pretty much having a different opinion as it relates to what happens on the opposition side. Obviously, Mark is saying that Philip Paulwell, got something scripted. Paulwell is saying that, it's the tradition to just sign off on whoever is selected. And I'm
Not
wondering if
sign off, but support.
support,
That's
yeah.
just lose support. Yeah.
Well,
So,
pretty much
like,
it is a
what?
sign off because once they vote for that person, they're sanctioning their role. Don't you agree?
Yeah, but signing, I don't want to people think that they're pretty much signing documents. But in the
Yeah.
sense of the tradition, I guess the script would be like the motions, whatever in terms of second, perhaps that. But when we listen to the clips, Powell is not really saying that I don't know. Powell is saying I understand how the system works. It's just that the
For sure.
opposition leader is saying that, he wasn't aware, Powell wasn't aware. But Powell is saying, I've been here long enough to understand how the system works. This is just how it goes. So even if I am not for this person, we just normally do it on both sides. It has never been a problem. And he's saying it will continue in the future as well, where, both sides. So in that sense, we see, that, big difference there. But again, they just need to get back to the business of the country and ensuring that, Jamaica is served in the best possible way. I feel that's where we need to go in the context of all of this. Just serve the Jamaican people and serve us, well. That's what we want. Get back to the country's business. And Kevin is saying, That's correct. He did say that, but do we really need or do we really want another national hero? I don't know, Kevin, do you? Andrew, welcome. It's legal but not, I guess, a good look. And Lavish Living Hub, welcome, welcome. All right, so just those things, and I guess he was talking about the income tax. Is it the income tax?
So, Natasha and viewers, do you think that some of the things that were mentioned in the presentation by Mr. Golden was appropriate for such presentation? For example, making Bob Marley a national hero,
What do you think, Ruben? What do you think? I told you from the
I'm asking this question.
I said from the start that if you can recall this, like, or at least at
Yeah, you said
points
it's
in
a
our
unique,
conversation,
presentation. It's
yes,
different
his
from the norm.
presentation was just a little bit, unique. And I like your word. I'm going to borrow it. It was just unique in the context of a budget presentation. It was more like, you know what, this is my time, and I'm coming out, punches. I'm coming out. I'm going to dash some heavy punches. And so, it was just going, okay, corruption, I'm going to deal with you. Hero, we are going to talk about you. The income tax threshold, me, I got to talk about you. So it was like, going, and yeah. So I felt
Yeah,
that the speech was not, as I said, not the customer one that you would want to expect in a budget debate. So it was more like, it was all encompassing, budget, corruption, election. You need to come out of government, you need to take out yourself and find somebody else, as, you need to leave that prime minister role. So we got a little bit of, all of that, all of the above. And so it was kind of hard, figuring, it's a budget and what that's what. And I guess you would ask the question again, isn't there a time and place for everything? And the answer is yes, but Mark had an agenda, I guess, and they were just, I guess, trying to get whatever they wanted to get out in the context of, their perspective. So yeah.
yeah, I understand what you're saying, but for me, I'll say I think it should have been a focus on the budgetary stuff. For example, I heard you mentioning the increase of I'm not remembering the word right now.
The income tax threshold.
Income tax, yeah, threshold, yeah. That would directly relate to the budget, but boy, the other stuff I think, are a little bit far away and should have been discussed at some other point in time. Where, I think it was the opportune time for him to talk about the gaps that he sees in the budget and how he would, propose doing things differently. So I think he dropped the ball in that sense. But, that's how it is. I guess he had a lot on his mind and a lot written down, and he expressed himself in no uncertain terms.
Yeah, I guess as you mentioned, he 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 had a lot to say, and he was just ensuring that we heard, what he had to say, and even after the walkout, they he continued in terms of getting the media and sharing, which was good in that sense. So, and he was pretty much, as I said, on it. He was, also saying, He talked about elections too, in the context that I guess the Jamaican people are pretty much saying that they wanted a change. So that was the local government elections. You know, he talked about the figure, and so as I can say, his contribution was, you know, there all a lot of areas, a lot of areas. So he was just pretty much, you know, there saying, you know, the Jamaican people, you know, is showing that, you know, they're ready again to listen to what the PNP has to offer. And, you know, so he touched on that too. All right. And in the context of, you know, the local government election. So just to tell you that, you know, he has been, you know, doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So there we go.
But you know, in following up with that question, Natasha Lee, and if the viewers want to, you know, weigh in on this as well, is that a good representation of him as a leader, though, that presentation that he made? Because it should, to me, it should have been an objective one. I don't want to skew anybody's answer, but you know, if you're called to talk about a particular thing, and you're going to do a little bit more than that, as you would say, or you know, he would come up with this unique presentation. Is that a good reflection of him as a leader dealing with the issues at hand, the specified issues at hand? And based on what has happened in the local government election and how he had dealt with that as well, is are those things adding to his repertoire as a good opposition leader, and you know, and a good alternative to Andrew Holness as it relates to leading the country?
Some great questions, and they're open for persons in the chat. So would love to hear from you in the context of the questions, you know, Ruren is asking. So, you know, share in the chat or give us a call. Would love to hear from you. You know, a part of politics is, I guess, saying things that people want to hear. So if Mark Golding feels that he's able to connect with the people in this way, or any politician, let me not just say Mark Golding, I guess, you know, and again, it's up to us as citizens to hold, you know, our political representatives accountable, right? And so that is up to us. We have that power and we can definitely do that. So, you know, if we want to see better for ourselves and our country, then we need to hold them, you know, accountable in that sense. So if Jamaican people say, Mark, we want a real budget presentation, we want to really hear what you're going to do. Yeah. So we never want to hear about no national era, no election, because election done. We want to hear how we can survive, or we can get some money, you know, how we can send the picnic go to school, or we can buy food, whatever it is. I guess we as the people, we have that power to hold, you know, our leaders accountable. And you know, you have some people there. I mean, Ruben, you're there questioning his speech, and then you have some people who are very happy to hear his speech. So it varies in the context of, you know, different perspectives and what we want. All right, so I'm just here checking the chat. So we have a few more minutes before we wrap this one up. And we'd love to hear from you. So give us a call. Can we get another quick call before we close this one off? So just another few more minutes here. and then we're going to close this one out. And we'll be here in terms of providing you with updates. That's been a long evening. Also carrying, champs and just trying to update our viewers, listeners, and subscribers. So, and this one, a lot of persons wanted us to come on and just talk about, what happened on Tuesday. So as always, we're doing our best to ensure that, we're giving you this opportunity to just share, where we can talk about these issues for sure. All right, so welcome, welcome. If you're just tuning in, welcome. All right, do not leave without hitting the like button and the subscription button. All right, and again, you can give us a call. The WhatsApp number is on screen. And Kevin is saying, I can't wait to hear the Prime Minister's presentation tomorrow. I hope he states his plan for Jamaica and not on March. And that's a good one. So we'll definitely, try to follow up in the context of, what is happening so that we can keep our community informed. All right, so would definitely, love to hear from you again. So ensure that you hit the subscription button, ensure that you turn on your post notification so that you do not miss any updates from this channel. Ren, I'm just circling back to you. Do you have any, final comments that you'd like to share? And persons in the chat, any final comments that you'd like to share in the chat? So just circling for those comments right now. Ren? All right, so I'm not hearing from Rurian right now, so I'm just going to check in the chat to see, if there are any, final comments that you'd like to share. Kindly share in the chat. Would love to, hear from you. Final comments in the context of, what has happened. All right, please remember to hit the like button, the share button, and the subscription button. So just to give you a little summary of what happened. So on Tuesday, right, during the opposition leader's, budget presentation, he pretty much, at some point during his presentation, criticized, Juliet Holness being the wife of the Prime Minister and also the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And so as a result of that criticism, the government MPs, they walked out, of the parliament. And by virtue of them walking out, the opposition leader was not able to complete his presentation because they did not have the quorum to continue with the sitting. However, Mark Golding, I guess, got the attention of the media outside of the parliament. And I guess he later had a press conference as well, where he shared further. In the context of, this happening and, Juliet Holness being the speaker, the governing side, they're pretty much saying it's gender related and it's pretty much an attack, on Juliet as a woman. And so that kind of, started some conversations there. It was also shared from the government perspective or side that, Juliet Holness was nominated as Speaker by Delroy Chuck, and her nomination was supported, seconded by Philip Palwell. All right. And so in that context, this happened about, almost 6 months ago, or coming up to 6 months. And so if it is that the opposition had a problem, they should have, stated. So at that time, there was no objection to Juliet Holness being the Speaker of the House. And at that point, she was still the Prime Minister's wife, or she was the Prime Minister's wife. So there weren't any issues, there in that context. So I am assuming, based on, Mark Golding's presentation, Mr. Opposition Leader, that the problem now is regarding, in quotation, what they would say in the context of reports not being tabled. And so they are perhaps, saying, as a result of, Juliet perhaps being the Prime Minister's wife, that is why, this is not being done. So it's a different story in the context of, saying its performance now, as opposed to just being the Prime Minister's wife. Because, initially with the appointment, there wasn't any issues or, concerns, at that time, being the Prime Minister's wife. So it would be different to just have, okay, you're the Prime Minister's wife, but no, it's a performance issue. So we separate them. So it's not clearly separated, I would say, from the opposition, standpoint. And that would be good to just have that clear, separation in that context. And so, the PNP say, no, this is not a gender issue. It's really performance based. But again, with some issues there that are not too clear to in that context. So it came back down to, Mark Golding and Philip Powell. And, Philip Powell was saying, the speaker, in terms of, selecting a speaker, it's a traditional one, in the sense where, either party, so if it was the PNP was in government, they would select a speaker, and the JLP, who would be in opposition, they would support, and vice versa. So he shared that based on his experience, pretty much that has always been the thing, and no problems. And he's pretty much saying that will continue, in that sense. We also heard a clip from him pretty much congratulating Juliet Holness in terms of being the Speaker of the House, and just, wanting to work with her in terms of moving forward as the leader of opposition business. So we heard from him in that regard. And then pretty much Mark Golding was going a bit further and saying, yes, tradition, but no, he wasn't there. And, saying that Philip Powell was unaware that the clerk of the house, just gave him the script and say, just go on with it. But, Philip Powell pretty much said, he understands, he has the experience and understand what is happening. But then there was, a little bit of difference there. Again, we also, at some points talk about the behavior of the MPs in the context of the government, walking out, of the parliament and bringing an end to, the sitting there. So, looking at that, is this a way, how, do we want our leaders to be behaving this particular way? Right. And so again, talking about the fact that we need to hold them accountable as people, as citizens, because, it's the country's business, right? And the business of the country must go on, and they are our representatives. And so they need to act accordingly and, just do well in terms of representing, us as Jamaicans. So that's pretty much, a little roundup there. And Kevin is saying in the chat, all I have to say is that we need to move on with the country's business. So true. And Gregory, welcome, Gregory. All right, I see your comment there. So welcome, welcome. So that's pretty much, the roundup in the context of, what has happened in this one. Once there are further updates, I will definitely be live in terms of sharing and just wanting to hear from you. So please remember to hit the like button, the subscription button, and tap that bell. Yes, select all so that you do not miss any updates. So once we're going live, you'll get the notification so that you can be here, to share in our conversation. All right, thank you so much for coming over. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for sharing in the chat. Thank you so much for keeping this space a respectful one, right? And a safe one where we can continue to share, and learn from each other, despite, having different views or perspectives. So thank you so much. I'm just going to go to the music right now and then sign out. But I always want to leave, you with something, motivational, something that you can apply to your everyday life. Sometimes there is a lot of noise or confusion, and we just need to keep focus and just listen to that, that calming voice, that voice, that will make a difference. All right. So, be kind to yourself, exercise self-care, and trust God in everything that you do. Remember to put God first, trust Him, and, He will definitely, definitely make a way for you. Thank you so much for coming over. Thank you so much for tuning in. Blessings and love, everyone. And I will see you in the next live. All right. Bye for now.